Hello, welcome. So I'm just starting the channel, so my first few videos are going to be pretty messy, and I'm just going to allow them to be messy. I'm going to just pretty much freestyle with this video. Of course, I can always categorize and expand more later, but for the sake of the video, I want the focus to be Loosh, money, and parasitic egregores. Now, this is mostly for people who already know what these things are. I might create some more videos to create a breakdown of what Loosh is, what the egregore is, and what I mean by parasitic egregore. Everybody knows what money is. In a nutshell, let me just go ahead and explain. So Loosh is the negative energy that somebody expresses through a trauma or a triggering event, or from grief, or from anxiety, pretty much any of your negative thoughts. The idea is that they're not just thoughts, but they're also emotions. And these emotions have an energetic signature that can become consumed. What's an egregore? An egregore is a collective thought form. A collective thought form that has been powered by so many minds with so much focus that it becomes an autonomous, independent, informational entity. How do these things relate? Well, it all starts with the mind. The mind is essentially the framework for all of these things. There has to be a belief structure to even implement the monetary system. Money is a measurement system. And for the sake of understanding Loosh and its value to negative entities, you need to understand how it functions in sort of a monetary sense. Because if let's say this is a limited resource, and you're trying to aggregate a certain amount under certain conditions, you're going to treat it just like you would a product in sort of a corporate development context. Does that make sense? So let's say, for example, that a corporation is looking to increase a product. They have to source the raw materials from somewhere. Let's say they have to source the raw materials from a mine, like they need metals to create a phone or something. They're going to want to maximize their ability to be able to harvest those minerals, and they're going to want to create situations and conditions that are favorable for them to be able to harvest. Similarly, this is how the harvesting negative energy would work theoretically in this model. Egregorial systems. Now I'm going to touch into parasitic egregorial systems because that's going to further end the focus on the monetary system as well. First, let's talk about worldview. So these three things make sense together in the same pool. Worldview. I came to my own awareness that the world we were living in is somehow not quite right. I sort of eventually came to some of the same conclusions that many of the Gnostics have come to. But for the sake of time and simplicity, let's just put it this way. The world we live in is seen as overall an entropic system, meaning that energy and resources are limited, and there's competition for resources. If you look at the model of the animal kingdom, for the most part you have predator and prey, and although you do have some mutually beneficial relationships, generally when you're looking at the whole context of it, there's competition even within the community of a certain animal species, and there is this consistent evolution of tension, a nonstop tension. And so the idea is that when an animal is in that high energy experience of being chased by a predator, or when the predator, hungry, is chasing after the prey, knowing if it doesn't catch that prey, it's going to be even hungrier. It sets off this high adrenalized state that supposedly gives off a certain life force energy. And this life force energy is the currency, the true spiritual, energetic currency of the earth. This is really where it's at. So in a sense, if there is a food chain, whatever is consuming this energy, this energetic output, or has the most control over its consumption, is going to be seen as the apex predator. Is it us? I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I'll say this. I do think human beings feed off of negative energy as well. So it's not as if human beings are just prey in this context. But there's a certain kind of human beings as a whole sort of act in a sort of unconscious, reactive way to their reality, to their environment. Okay? You can almost guarantee you're going to get certain emotional reactions out of people depending on how you set up the environment. I think if human beings no longer want to be seen as prey or feel like they're prey, the most they can do is start with some kind of regulation of their thinking and their emotions, because it really is the framework for everything. So think of the way that a company or a business would be set up. It needs a blueprint. It needs to be set up with some kind of structure. Otherwise, it would be chaotic and it wouldn't be efficient. And that's going to come with mapping out a blueprint that you can get multiple people to agree to. That's what a corporation is. It's the body of multiple people. The way that this works is people believe in the concept of what the corporation stands for. So this is what would be an egregore. So schools, government, family, social, political groups are massive egregores. These egregorial systems, they are our thought forms. They are thought forms that are so powerful that even though we create them, this is the funny thing, even though we create them with our minds and our emotions, we feel the need to be validated by them. We need to be validated by a concept that's not even real. Okay, it's like money. We believe in money to such an extent. What is money? It's a belief in a concept. We believe in it so much that it has become its own flow of energy, whatever it is, informational entity that we need to be validated in order to even survive. With money, you have to have this number on your screen, projected onto your screen, so you can run your debit card or whatever and eat. But think about the nature of these things. There's something that's pulling these together. If you think about the way that money works, now of course I'm generalizing, but oftentimes there's something sort of parasitic about wealth, because it involves exploitation of someone else's labor, right? And so we can debate on whether or not there's the agreement there is fair and balanced. And in some situations, perhaps it is, or even mutually beneficial. But in the general context, you could probably easily come to an example of someone who has an extraordinary amount of money, and the way they got to that amount of money probably wasn't in the most what word should I use? Humanitarian ways, right? There's something parasitic about it. And there's something parasitic about these thought forms that we're powering to. Maybe I think this video really is just an introduction video on the concepts. I will go into these concepts deeper. So I'll say this is an introduction to. But I think about our political groups, the polarization, how it's become an energy vampire, how effective it is. I mean, it's become so efficient at generating anger and rage. I think what I'm getting at here, I think just take a moment to stand back and observe whenever you are witnessing a highly efficient system, whatever it might be, that's producing emotions on a high level. Stop and consider where all of this is coming from. Maybe not even necessarily negative situations either, so I'll give you some examples. Maybe a workplace that is incredibly miserable, and that depends on some form of misery or the exploitation of misery, such as outsourcing, right? To maybe kids who are in a factory farm. Think about the what it's built on, right? Because the essence of a thing is what it's built on. Unfortunately, that's how it is. But also, anything that requires you to give up your energy to something else, like a church would be, asking you for your money, for your time, for your energy. I'm not saying necessarily that it's wrong, but what I'm just asking you to do is to become aware of these things. Whenever there's almost a sort of like a demand for like almost like a worship of something, whether it's the worship of the dollar bill, the worship of a supposed deity, and then you've got almost like a worship of the people who are representing the deity. Okay, it's important. Or even celebrity worship. Okay, pop stars. Think about the amount of energy that's generated at a concert. Think about what does it even mean to be starstruck? When we're all just human beings. So what does that even mean? There's this massive energetic divide. Okay, there's a massive energetic divide between a celebrity and the fan. But they depend on one another. You can't be a celebrity without the fan, right? You extract the energy from them, the focus, the attention from them. Even in some way, what I'm doing right now, I'm demanding your attention. So I hope you're getting something back from this. But think about just generally these institutions that we're like constantly told to just give your energy to, a school system, a teacher. It's kind of wild if you think about it, really. And the fact that we think that they already have this power by default. Do they already have the power by default, or do they depend on you? Right? Like right now, I'm depending on you if you want to watch the video. If my video becomes successful, which really, to me right now, it just feels, I just enjoy talking about these things. So even if it's just one person, I'm happy to help. But think about that. Other YouTubers, like, what are they asking from you? Like, what kind of energy are people pulling from you? What kind of validation do they need from you? And what is that going to cost you? Because does that individual or thought form already have the power, or do we give it the power? Does it depend on our power? Here's a clue. Does it consistently need people to feed into it? The government does. School systems, influencers, celebrities, whatever. They constantly need to be fed energy. So think about that. Whether it's a person or a thought form, an egregore. And by the way, some individuals, they represent egregores. Okay? They're a representation of a system. Let me give you an example. Like an egregore would be like a political party. Okay? So you have these icons who represent the egregore. Or like when you're thinking about environmentalism, you might put Greta Thunberg's face to it. So she's sort of an individual that represents the egregore of environmentalism, like the thought of the concept of this thing, this powered social thing. So if you don't want to feel like prey. You want to feel sovereign in your own energy and your emotional, psychological autonomy and the freedom of your own mind and all that good stuff. You need to just simply stand back and realize where you're dumping all of your energy into. Okay? And decide if they're taking advantage of you. All right? And what you can do about it. If you're caught up in a situation like a job or whatever, or some kind of living situation or survival situation, and you don't want to be in it, but you have to be in it for a while for some reason, for whatever, do what you can to emotionally and psychologically distance yourself from the inside. Okay? And generally, I would say that really, that's the core of where all the true reality is taking place. It's taking place within. And it's funny because when you start to rearrange the energy that you give out, you start to moderate your own emotional energy, the reality around you, it changes. It might not even physically fully change, but the way that people respond to you, the way that you solve problems changes. So anyways, this is just a ponder video. Let's just ponder the world and these thought forms and these egregorial systems, the nature of money, and maybe these things work together, and maybe we can go into more details if you're interested in. I think there's some very clear distinctions where money actually facilitates Loosh, and how money sometimes is even a representation of how much Loosh has been generated. If you want me to talk more about those types of things, or you want me to go into maybe getting into the parasitic egregore, how to disconnect from them, how to know if you're being powered by one or if you're powering one, and its relation to like black magic, for example, I can talk about those things. Anyways, I hope this was an interesting video that stimulated your curiosity, and yeah, maybe I'll have more refined, thought out videos, but this is just kind of to get the ball rolling. So thank you for watching.